This is the Nenohi Cutlery 180mm Show, a Damascus Kiritsuke Santoku, and more importantly, a more wallet-friendly way to get a knife from one of my all-time favorite Japanese brands. What is up, folks? Justin Khanna here. Welcome back to the channel for another knife review slash breakdown slash showcase. Nenohi has designed this and constructed this and priced this in a way that screams approachable and quote-unquote accessible, but at the time of making this video, it is not that easy to get your hands on one of these. And so my hope is that this video can be a bit of a first look for those of you that aren't aware of this line. And then as production ramps up for these and it becomes easier to get your hands on one, then you have all the information. Because full transparency, Nenohi sent me this, and as per usual here on the channel, there's no partnership that I enter into where I'm told to say anything good or bad. It's always my honest opinion. But here are my thoughts after about 6 weeks of using this at home. Let's start, as we usually do, with the on-paper specs of this blade. This is a 180mm blade profile. There's a Gyoto version of this, as well as a non-K-tipped Santoku knife, so they've really covered all of their bases here. I have a feeling that the reason that the production might not be so high, especially on the exported blades, is because they're seeing which profile sells best. They're trying to get some data, but back to the specs. The blade is made up of what they're calling an A-class Damascus, and the steel that they're using is in the same league as their A-type steel that's used on a lot of their other professional knives that you and I know and love. But I did reach out. A-type and A-series are different, and the makeup isn't quite exactly the same, and so it's one of those best-kept secret kind of things, so I can't exactly say what the makeup is, but there's rumors floating around on the forums if you want to do your own research and get some more information. On the high end, it's rocking a 63 as the Rockwell hardness rating, and of course, take into account the low end that accompanies that. The Damascus patterning looks almost clad, so aka a sandwich maneuver, with the steel leading into the edge not sporting that patterning, and the spine also doesn't have the Damascus patterning on it, so just keep that in mind. Looking at some of the detailing on the blade itself, we've got what I'm calling light beveling, and I say that because on the underside of the blade, arguably where most people cooking at home grip the knife, it has this beautifully rounded, comfortable to hold, no harsh edges about it kind of bevel. However, when you do a proper pinch grip and you choke up on it, you can feel that there was like maybe one pass along the spine on the wheel to kind of bevel out the spine, and then another pass right into the angle of the K-tip here towards the tip. Because it's not a completely raw 90-degree spine where it has this harsh abrasive edge, but it's not as rounded as the bottom section, which I thought was really, really interesting. Now let's talk handle. You will be gripping an octagonal tapered length rosewood handle with a single pin connection that supports some light copper and bronze colored accents. I'm actually a really big fan of this single pin aesthetic. I know it's a completely subjective thing, but all the other Nenohi pins are pretty vanilla and unadorned, just steel. So to see some accenting here, I think might actually be a first for their design. And I want to talk about the size of the handle too, but we'll get into that in a hot second. Last up, on paper specs, let's talk price. This is listed on their own site at 27,000 yen with the current exchange rate that clocks in just under $250, which I'm also going to get into later in this video. Let's talk about my thoughts and what this knife is like to use. All right, subjective time. This is not my preferred length of blade. I think most of you know that, but comparing this to other blades of this length that I've used, this is what you want. And I'm going to justify that by not talking about the blade, but I'm going to talk about the handle. Now, I've already referenced the tapered length, but feeling that design detail, the fact that it gets wider as you go towards the butt of the handle, comboed with the fact that this is the handle diameter that I would probably expect in something like a 240 or a 270mm equivalent in hand, makes it a joy to use. And it's not a massive change, right? Putting it up against the octagonal handle from Isaiah Schrader and the ZDP 189 Bunka from Sharp Edge Shop, you can see it's maybe only about a millimeter or two difference, but it immediately gives that effect that I think the chunky Bob Kramer handle did so well, getting away from the sleek, thin design and actually making something that's comfortable to hold and keeps in mind the ergonomics of the human hand. I want to share some subjective thoughts on the blade by first talking about the insertion point. And it's fine. Obviously, you can see we don't have any upgraded materials as a bolster or ferrule, but it's not janky, right? There's super clean colored adhesive, it looks like, and everything is flush, no food traps that I can really see or have noticed as you're using this. And for a knife that needs to slot in as the quote-unquote base level of their product suite, I think this is fine. Trying to keep that product suite in mind, for double the price, you can snag a magnolia wood, water buffalo horned knife that uses their S-type steel, and I think that's the reason why I think this is fine. Those design details aren't what this knife is made for. Continuing on the blade itself is exactly what you would expect from Nenohi. The edge is dependable, it's very long lasting. I've done 2 stone sessions with this, and it sharpens beautifully, no chipping, no bending. Add on top of that, the fact that you get a pretty consistent flat swoop kind of blade profile means that if you use this as a push cutting knife, you're going to keep the tip of the knife sharp for more delicate projects and keep the brunt of the work on this kind of 2/3 belly section of the blade that makes food and board contact first. 2 things I noticed when I unboxed this. It is thin. It's very thin, and from how I observed the edge coming out of the box, it has this kind of slight asymmetric bevel on it, which again, I think is a bit strange for a knife that's marketed for an at-home audience. I've basically, in my sessions, kept like a light 60/40 asymmetric bevel on mine. Getting into who is this for and should you buy it? Okay, let's talk about my dilemma here, because it's not easy to come to a conclusion here as a potential buyer for this knife. Remember, $246 for this knife, 27,000 yen. For that price, right now, you could go to Korin, 20% off, you could purchase the Nenox G-Type Plus Gyoto 8.2-inch knife, which, after some design updates, and yes, a different length and blade profile compared to this, but nonetheless a blade with a more, after the updates, it's got a convex shape, it's a bit thinner, it has an updated, more ergonomic handle. The steel is in the same league as this steel because it's A-type steel sporting that 63 Rockwell hardness. Plus, it comes with its pre-ground 70/30 bevel ratio. So my question is that the better long-term buy? And I say dilemma because I'm asking myself this as I produce this review. Am I making this too soon? Is Nenohi doing a Tesla strategy with this line of knives, where the first few production runs get purchased with higher profit margins from first adopters and super fans like me, and then the cost of this is going to go down over time, making it much more accessible and approachable to the home audience? Because my genuine question is, what home cook is in the market for a $246 Santoku knife? And I ask that semi-rhetorically because I have the questions. I get the data from you folks that reach out to ask me, and those aren't professionals. The budget is 60% of that, right? It's around $150 max is what most people want to pay. And here's the thing with Nenox knives, right? In general, they're so unassuming. You look at this or their bone handle knives on the board at someone's house or at a restaurant, and you'd be like, oh, that's a cool knife. It has some nice aesthetic details, but then you use it once and you're like, wow, that handle feels great to hold. And oh, wow, that spine is thin. And wow, that edge really held up well all through my entire week. And I kept coming back to use it because it's not just comfortable and beautiful, but it's also durable and enduring, and it stands up to the workload. And I think the reason I'm actually comfortable recommending this is because that's what you're likely to experience as you use a knife like this. It's not some sort of geometric revelation in blade design or some new game-changing handle material technology. It's the basics done well. And weirdly enough, I'd recommend this to 2 types of folks, one at home and one professional. For that first category, you cook at home a lot and you want something that's going to last for 2 to 4 weeks between stone sessions. And notice that caveat, because I'm going to cry if I see you running this through one of those sharpening contraptions. It doesn't have to be you sharpening. Take it to someone who will put this on a set of stones if you have to, but this is too thin and too hard for that type of treatment through one of those contraptions. I don't want you to chip this, so please keep that in mind. This knife will serve you incredibly well, and if you can find it on sale, I think it's a no-brainer. In fact, I think there's a non-Damascus version of this series that has a lighter wood handle that I actually really enjoy. I think it looks equally amazing, and you should peep that after this video. It's down low in the description if you're interested. Moving to the professional I'm going to recommend this for, the professional who's been on the fence of jumping into Nenohi's world, and something's been holding you back, right? Whether it's the design of any of the Nenox lines, the colored handles, or the price, because to me, you're getting the best of Nenohi here from a philosophy perspective at relatively a steep discount, and I think the performance of this would easily stand up to a professional's workload. In the same way that the microplane gets sold in Williams-Sonoma for people that cook at home, but us professionals love microplanes because they just work, right? If you would like to check out the unboxing that I did for this knife, that went up as a bonus video a few weeks ago to my supporters in my community. Definitely check that out in the description if you're interested. It's not just bonus content, but it's once a week live streams that I do, plus networking with other industry professionals in a way that helps support all of the content that I produce. I also share other gear recommendations, sales that I find as I'm browsing through things, fun products that I'm thinking about bringing in for new reviews on the channel on my weekly newsletter. It's called 80/20 Edge. I highly recommend signing up for that if you'll have me in your inbox. So normally this is the part of the video where I share that there are links to purchase down in the description, and I'm gonna do my best to update those when they hopefully become more available, but these are brand new. They're effectively Nenohi's first foray into knives for cooking at home, and so I'm incredibly honored to have the opportunity to showcase this and share this video on the channel. As always, I'm very keen to hear your thoughts, answer any questions in the comments down below, but until next time, thank you so much for your attention. My name is Justin Khanna. Have a good one.